FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
WESN.
Tobago. My name is Sean Michael Small, and this is The Social Price is Right. Now, our first item of forbid is effective anti-crime measures, and we'll open the bidding rounds. $1, $500, $20,000, $1 million. Well, that's all wrong because the actual retail price for effective crime fighting in TNT is everybody's individual rights and freedoms, because it seems we can't do anything without a state of emergency. But as a consolation prize, there'll be no curfews, so we jamming still. For the second time in 1 year, we have an SOE, but we jamming still. Only in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't know if anywhere else will have such a thing as a state of emergency, but we partying still. To be fair, the government is being warned by the Prime Minister, don't go out partying, but now, that's the big news coming out of this weekend. The state of emergency, it was declared by surprise Friday morning. They just had a press conference where the Minister of Homeland Security was using reassuring language on the state of crime, and it seems as though the government had to switch gears. Toot sweet, drop an SOE on us Friday morning with a press release, then a press conference, then another press conference, then the Prime Minister spoke on it, which I don't necessarily like the order of those things, assuming I got it right. But other things have been happening. To some extent, it seems as though the SOE is eclipsing some of the other news. And in this case, at least, I would not necessarily, well, I don't know. There's always the concern that, hey, they call it SOE just to distract us from this CPEP thing here. Now, to what extent is that true? I doubt. because there's a lot of negative implications over this SOE. However, this won't be the first time that I have said that a sitting government has used negative press to try to hide other negative press. I don't necessarily see that as an effective strategy. I don't necessarily believe that to be the case, but that is the a theory that some people, members of the public, will to some degree at least never discount, never put aside. Because, hey, is the price right for you and me, our individual freedoms? To some extent, members of the media could be facing increased scrutiny under the regulations. Generally speaking, the last SOE showed that wasn't the case. But let's not forget, there was a situation a few years ago where a certain reporter in a certain media house, the authorities decided, hey, we want your files. Hey, we want your information. We want your sources. I mean, technically, let's just say something came up. They can do it now. They can go into your home. And this is one of those weird things where now we're kind of, the same TTPS that at the very least has bad apples that the organization itself has acknowledged. We're hoping that none of them take advantage of the situation. We're not worried about the Commissioner of Police, right? As bad as the politics gets, they know not to cross certain lines. The Commissioner of Police, at least certain members of the executive, the political leadership, etc., etc. But what about the rank and file? It's not the official macro decisions, but rather the micro decisions by the individuals that are actually public-facing. Each minor interaction that can be affected by something like a state of emergency. Of course, the flip side to that is the amount of lawsuits that come out of state of emergencies and money that flows out to the Treasury due to state of emergencies. This government should technically, even those that weren't there, should have put their studies in, especially when they found out with the kind of state of emergency. All right, let's what did our predecessors do in the partnership last time? So let's try not to do that again. But to some extent, once you declare it, it's really up to the police service, right? Brings up that whole question about who should actually be liable for some of these lawsuits. But with that, well, that's why you're supposed to hold everybody accountable, but we don't actually correlate consequences with the actual people who cause the consequences all too often. We just kind of let it slide, because at the end of the day, we're jamming still, right? We're jamming still. So a couple of things that are still ongoing that are kind of important before we get into the meat of the SOE matter further. There's a report in the daily newspapers this morning. The CPEP Company Limited CEO Keith Eddy has, this is how it's been reported, has sworn that he refused to approve a 3-year extension of hundreds of contractor agreements without cabinet approval, right? But he is stating that he faced intense pressure from the then Minister of Local Government and Rural Development and other officials to extend the contract. So this is one of those things where my problem with this is, just to be brief, right? Because, okay, you're saying that you were pressured by the former minister to do this thing. You're saying it now, well after the fact that when it came out that these contracts were renewed, there was at least a good chunk of the public sees it as a negative, how the contracts were renewed just before an election, right? Okay, you're saying it now. Some people might think you might not be totally saying it in good faith given the time jump. But hey, I understand to some extent speaking publicly could put yourself in trouble, right? So you have to be careful. All right, fine. The real issue is not with Mr. Eddy and his claims, because to some extent it's reasonable enough that then the follow-up would not be, okay, let's just condemn Faris Alwari. No, the follow-up would be, okay, let's look into the accusations, because at the very least they don't seem impossible. They seem, to some extent, one of potentially a handful of plausible explanations as to what happened. Because it's not like we like the results, so we're not expecting the explanation to be something pleasant and benign. It could be benign. They tried to give us a benign one, but it's still not sitting well with all of the population. So the unpleasant explanations, at the very least, you should explore them. And if they're not true, then the benefit of exploring them is you disprove them actively. You don't indirectly just kind of try and brush it aside. Now, the real issue I have is potentially this speaks to the big problem that the current administration wanted to deal with CPEP. Unfortunately, and this is why we go back to, it's not just what you do and why you do it, but it's how you do it. What did you do? Well, you decided to get rid of certain CPEP contractors, right? That's essentially what's going to happen in the long run. How many are brought back? I don't know. So it could eventually end up being all of them, depending on what information you have on each individual situation, or it could only be some of them. But the point is, you wanted to divest the government, the country, of certain contractors who you think were not acting in good faith. Fine, fair enough. Why did you do it? Because these contracts were not necessarily on the up and up. Fine, we could appreciate that. How did you do it? Well, you kind of just sprung it like a poor political attack. That's what it looks like. There was no care and concern and consideration and a thought-out process that we saw, transparency from the beginning. We're looking into CPEP. This is what we're finding. This is what we potentially would do about it. This is why what we're going to do about it is a good idea. This is what we expect to happen when we do what we're going to do about it. That should be a positive for the country. No, we didn't have that. We just had a, hey, by the way, oh, you're gone. Or y'all are like that, hey, look, I mean, I'm sorry, we do have a month severance. Don't worry, that's coming 1 month later. Is it coming? I remember when somebody made a promise to do a payout just before the election, and it took 5 weeks and it still didn't happen. I'm just saying, what criticism is good for one is good for all, right? So the government does not look as though it is fully occupying the moral high ground in this situation. It looks like they're playing politics too, to some extent. There is smoke and fire at CPEP and URP. I don't think anybody is disputing that except for diehard PNM supporters. It's just that the people in the middle are saying, why, just because they do a wrong, don't mean you fight fire with fire and do a wrong back. But the key point is that concept that I just said there means potentially that what may be a big raging fire of corruption in CPEP might be underplayed now because of how the UNC decided to play it out. It might be underestimated now. It might be to some extent ignored now. The public outcry over the situation might be mixed now because of how the UNC decided to play it out. Because of a very, very obviously not smart way to implement a thing, very obvious poor political strategy, poor public relations strategy. You could have done the same exact thing, but if you framed it differently, communicated it differently, managed the expectations of the public differently, showed actual leadership and judgment in a different manner, and maybe not always speak as though you're sitting on a high horse, you would have had all of this ammunition to shoot at the PNM for what they potentially did in CPEP. But now, similar to what the PNM did when they were in government, by your own hand, you have taken an issue. If you want to play politics, you could have been winning on this issue, but now you're not. And I don't think at this point it will ever go beyond essentially a neutral issue. There will be good points for the, there will be bad points, sorry, for the PNM, there will be bad points for the UNC, no one will actually win, and it'll be a stalemate. And I am speaking in from a very cynical perspective, because I don't like politicking on that level, but hey, seemingly that's what the politicians want to do. So I'm speaking down to that level, because I do view it as speaking down when you're going on a level that has anything to do with beyond good governance and what is best for the people. Even on the level of, hey, we want to do a smart man politicking thing. It did not make that much sense, and it didn't take long for it to be apparent that the strategy behind what the government did with CPEP and ERP is not making sense. Just because the PNM may or may not have done something wrong. First of all, you have to prove it. It's not a definitive statement of fact until it is proven. And then the whole point was we didn't want that. We didn't want that when the PNM did that, so why are you doing that? All right. WASA is looking to increase the water supply on the North Coast. Kudos to that. All I'll say is, where's the money for that coming from? Right? That's all I have to say. Let's not forget, I believe the government, I could be Minister Amin, they said they're not dependent on the property tax money, that, you know, it's just that you kept it, right? And I always said, well, find the money for that. If you can find the money for that, you get the refunds. Where are we finding? This is a PNM budget now. Was this part of the budget? Was this part of the pre-existing budget? Because if that's the case, one could argue that these initiatives done by WASA under the new CEO is potentially really initiatives planned and budgeted by the old CEO and the old Minister of Public Utilities. I'm just saying, you can't hide behind, well, we're not even 3 months in yet, we're not even 100 days in yet, but then say, oh, well, you know, all of these little incremental gains on long-term type projects within the last 2 months is because of us. Can't hide behind, well, we've only been there for a short while. But all these big things, you know, that, you know, all of a sudden just coming up within a short period of time. Yeah, we sorted it out. Look how fast I know they did that with flooding. But something tells me WASA was not running on that kind of timetable. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. These projects might not be that big. We have to wait and see. The murder of Candace Honoré. The suspect was arrested at his attorney's office. First of all, this has to be one of the dumbest murders I've ever heard of. Because essentially, the prevailing theory is, in a fit of passion, he murdered her in a very gruesome way. So it's not like, I'm mad, I strike out, she's dead, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, what he did. That's not what the guy said. Apparently, he was so mad, he killed her in whatever manner he killed her, and then took the time to do what he did to put her in multiple garbage bags. I don't want to spell it out even to that extent, I just with those details. And then put those bags in a suitcase, and then take that suitcase and dump it in the river or whatever body of water he dumped it in, right? I don't know if any sane thinking person is going to really have their anger last through that much of a process. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But what makes it really stupid is, reportedly, as he finished dumping the body, then he went to hide in his lawyer's office. What was the point of all this, right? I have no issue with them throwing the book at this guy, assuming that, you know, everything lines up and he's the actual murderer, because that'll prove it. We can't just assume it, right? However, they also apparently, reportedly, arrested the lawyer, charging the lawyer with harboring a fugitive. Now, I don't know. I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know if that's a good idea because now I know, first of all, I don't know to what extent in the States something like this will infringe on attorney-client privilege. And then, I don't know how that translates to our laws down here. We might not have a similar concept down here, at least to some degree, right? But the flip side is this. Criminal defense attorneys, it's not as though the defense attorneys are obligated to just spew information to the police about their clients. So my layman's brain, I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. It's one thing if his attorney was actively like withdrawing money and buying a plane ticket in his name and arranging a boat to smuggle him out of the country. It's another thing if, well, he's just in my office and I'm trying to tell him, look, you can't stay here forever. You need to turn yourself in. I can't help you escape, right? What exactly was the attorney doing to say that he was going beyond his role as a defense attorney? Because to some extent, if defense attorneys are obligated to turn in their suspects, we're going to have a breakdown of criminal defense. And then that's going to cause a breakdown of the judicial system and the justice system. And then all of a sudden, we're going to have high court judges having to rule on all kinds of ridiculous situations that could cause what should be convicted criminals to get off scot-free, depending on the circumstance of the situation. I don't necessarily think it'll happen in this case, because I don't think his defense has been compromised yet, but a precedent like this might potentially compromise criminal defense. And then that kind of goes against the whole, you know, what's the point of having these guys if they are going to just sing like canaries? I can't tell them nothing. I can't trust them with nothing. So how am I going to get a proper defense? And you might think, well, why should guilty people get a proper defense? Hey, that's just the way it is. That's how the system is, to ensure that the evidence that's collected is so strong, it don't matter what argument the defense could put forward. Defense attorneys defend guilty people all the time. That's just the way the system works. It's a concession in order to allow for the bigger picture. Proper, robust defense means that when we have convictions, there is no doubt. They got their fair chance in court to fight for their freedoms as much as possible, as much within the reasonable limits of a trial. There's no doubt. But if the defense is compromised by any way, shape, or form, then there's doubt in the process. There's doubt in the process, then there's doubt in the conviction. And then if there's doubt in the conviction, then it opens up falsely accused people, mistaken identities, poor police work, poor prosecutors. Opens up a lot of things. Now, Housing Ministry is targeting 20,000 new homes. Similar situation. Where they getting money for that? I would like to know. I do think that government being the main source of low-income housing or affordable housing, to the degree that we as society demands of the government, I don't think it is a viable situation. But the private sector is not robust enough to handle that, because the private sector is so risk-averse and devoid of any sort of business leadership that it is what it is, right? There are very few actual entrepreneurs counted amongst the business owners of a certain economic bracket above a certain line. Above a certain level of wealth, the richer you are, the less brave you are, the less capable you seem to be, the less innovative and the less entrepreneurial. That's just what we observe. To some extent, it's not a lot of effort to bring a proven brand from abroad into the country to retail something. It just takes foreign exchange. One thing that's alarming, the gun dealer, Brent Thomas, right, because it's the Brent Thomas affair, he has, because of the appeal on the other court matter to do with his arrest and imprisonment, apparently is no longer willing to give another statement to the police which has potentially affected the investigation. This is one of those very interesting things where it's kind of funny how he has his legal matter ongoing while the investigation into Suzette Martin is ongoing. I do wonder, though it might not necessarily be true or fair for me to say this. So this is not a statement I'm making, it's a question. To what extent, because of what happened with the last investigation into Suzette Martin and this matter, and how it was handled, because I don't even think that investigation was done in a timely matter to begin with. But to what extent did that, however it was handled, causing a new investigation to have to happen now, potentially the timing of it affect everything? Because again, you have this appeal being before the court while the investigation is ongoing. So Brent Thomas, essentially now, he's concerned that if he says anything to the police, it could be used against him in the appeal. Right? So it's just one of those, I think there's a lot of critical situations, highly important, or situations that might deal with some serious matters that our criminal justice system rarely is not equipped to handle. In part because it's never happened before, so the first time is, it's always a how do we do it. We could look at how other jurisdictions did it, but that doesn't always work for you to just copy and paste. So you have to be careful because you're setting a precedent the first time over any type of matter. But then also I feel as though our system is built to operate at a certain level. Our laws were put in place to operate at a certain level, and we've never really evolved or updated them. Some of these things are pre-colonial, colonial, what have you. Pre-independence stuff. Some of these things might have been written at independence or not too long after, and they have been outdated for a decade or more. It is what it is. Now, a couple things happened during the SOE that I'll just state. One, and this is kind of sad because a cousin of Andrea Barrett was reported murdered due to refusing to pay extortion money. And this is going on during an SOE. Now, to some extent, it shouldn't matter that he's related to Andrea Barrett, but on the flip side, it will, to the narrative, give more press to the story, because to what extent now is our society indirectly asking this family to suffer? That's essentially what it is. That's essentially what it is. Because potentially we have a situation where two people died trying to do the right thing. Not necessarily trying to be some great hero or anything like that, but just, I am a citizen, and to some extent we do wonder what Andrea Barrett may or may not have known, done, said, not said, that may or may not have led to her being targeted. Don't know, right? Did her job have anything to do with the motivation for her murder? Don't know. Can't rule it out because, yeah. But now we have her cousin here saying, I am not going to give in to extortion. So they kill him. And you see, the problem is when the government says, you need to report criminal activity and not participate in crime and stay away from crime and stay away from a life of crime or whatever, you have people like this in a situation like this saying, or I could pay the money and not die because you can't protect me. Let's not forget the SOE, at least according to some of the communications by the authorities, is not to deal with gang violence or things like this. It's not. So we've gotten mixed messages on the SOE, just by the way. I don't think I have time to point it out. We'll speak about that maybe tomorrow. But last thing I'll say about something else that happened in the SOE, and this is actually more important than you would think. The Commissioner of Police is warning criminals not to challenge the police or other law enforcement officers during an SOE. This is due to a suspected car thief, that's the headline, was shot and killed by police during a shootout, right? The suspect fired on them, they returned fire. Now, this story happens outside of SOE, but the thing about an SOE is it's not just about if you shoot at police. The police have heightened powers. If ever there was a time for everybody to chill out and not try to either be combative or entitled or to use what they think might be reasonable, quote unquote, justifiable, quote unquote, resistance with the police, which could lead to, struggling, roughhousing, whatever. Now is not the time to do that. I mean, it's technically never the time to do that, but the reality check you will get slapped across your face with will be worse now. And for the most part, rightfully so. You obey instructions, stay polite, keep calm, don't be combative, and then if a police officer does anything to you, well, all right, we could then say, what did police officer do wrong? But if you want to act belligerent, combative, hostile, uncooperative, and you want to potentially struggle and quarrel and reach to physical conflict in whatever form or fashion with a police officer, I'm sorry, but you look for what you get depending. You could be innocent and doing nothing wrong. That doesn't mean you have the right now to engage in any kind of aggressive behavior with police officers. Because aggressive behavior for someone who is just annoyed at being pulled over with a routine traffic stop, and aggressive behavior for someone who is looking to commit violence to the police, they appear as the same things. So I ain't gonna fault no police officer, right, for being careful and not being patient and tolerant with nonsense, because we've seen in other jurisdictions where police officers essentially die just doing a routine traffic stop. And they didn't even start nothing yet. They weren't acting any kind of way. They were basically coming up to do a routine, what's your license, insurance, maybe you were speeding, please don't speed, maybe give you a little speeding ticket. Before any of that could happen, boom, dead. There are videos of that online if you want to look for them. But that's just a highlight. Hey, what might be mundane interactions for you, and you think, well, I'm upset, and let me display how upset I am actively to the police officer in front of me. It looks like hostile behavior, and that's what a combative person that might pull out a gun and shoot them, that's what it might also look like. I ain't gonna fault them for not wanting to take that chance. We're here, this is an SOE. So to some extent, the book that might be thrown at you if you want to act a fool will be a bigger book. Ironically though, this case, assuming that the reports are correct and the suspect opened fire at first, don't need an SOE for that. It's just, let's say you think it's a good idea to shoot the police and somehow by some miracle you escape, because that would be the intention, right? You ain't looking to do suicide by cop. Well, they have greater powers to come looking for you. So it's probably the dumbest thing to shoot at police, but it's extra stupid right now. So I fully support the commissioner saying don't challenge the police right now. They have other things reportedly they want to be doing right now. They don't need your nonsense on top of that, right? It's not about if you believe in the police, if you appreciate the job that they're doing. Regardless, we need to kind of control ourselves. If there's a bad cop out there doing his due on his own, for whatever reason he has, that's cool. You still comply and then deal with it after the fact. There's no version of events where it is a good idea for you to be combative any moment with any police officer. No matter if they are good cop, bad cop, doesn't matter. Does not matter. And most police officers are reasonable enough where if you're not combative, it will more or less be a very short situation, and then they will allow you to go on your way. But let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome the ASP. Let's see what we're going to talk about now. Of course, there will be certain aspects of the SOE that he will not be able to answer for because he is not the commissioner, he is not the Attorney General, he is not the Prime Minister. I'm just throwing that out there up front, and I will again when we come back after the break, and we welcome ASP Arun. Stay tuned, this is Talking About the WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Struggling with heart health or frequent migraines? Discover the simple steps to reclaim your energy and vitality.
We're diving into a topic that affects about 422 million people around the world: diabetes.
Tune into Wellness Unlocked, the series that delivers expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and well-being. Your health matters. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide: Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents.
the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
And we're back here and talking about the WSND content capital. Technically, yes, I am in Tobago, just not today. I am here in studio, right? I'll be back in Tobago from tomorrow for at least another week, but a week and a half. But until then, we will enjoy the face-to-face interaction. Luckily, the state of emergency did not suspend inter-island travel. Just saying. It's just one of those things where you're kind of left like, what's going to happen with things like that? You don't know because it's a state of emergency, right? Well, that said, here to speak about at least some aspects of it, we have the main ambassador of the TTPS for Talking Point, Acting SB Christopher Arun. Good morning.
Good day. Good day to you, Sean. Good day to your colleagues and staff. Good day to members of the public, your viewing public. So, yeah, we're here to talk about the SOE to some extent, based on the information I have at hand. We have updates for members of the public. I think that, you know, I would like to encourage you to have a face-to-face in Tobago because, I mean, there's face-to-face here.
Well, you have to come there. When
exactly.
I'm there, you have to come there.
I'm willing to come.
That's not up to me.
I'm willing to come.
But I mean, technically next week, Monday, I'll be in Tobago. Okay. So, yeah, if you want to do that, we could do that.
All right, I'll talk to the media.
Just be careful, the Prime Minister said no party in any SOE,
Well, I don't party, so.
Okay.
Right, so what we have, the commissioner in his briefing indicated that he wants, and this is what we come on the media to talk about, is the involvement of the members of the public during the SOE, and which is to assist the police officers and cooperative police officers during exercises, roadblocks. Of course, you know the norm when it has an SOE. Well, it has become the norm.
As I was just saying, to some extent, some of these things are what should be done regardless of an SOE or not.
Yeah, but,
right?
But especially now.
Yeah.
Because during the non-SOE period, you know, people, yes, they have rights and they stand up for their rights. And if an officer, the believer officer is persecuting them, not prosecuting, but persecuting them. You know, they tend to be verbal about it and give some resistance to some extent. And to some extent, you could do it during SOE, but you know, you don't really want, you want to be a little bit more smooth.
In my mind, the time, I mean, you shouldn't rarely do it ever, but definitely not during an SOE because, and again, we have to understand, and I'm telling the police officer, defense for police officers is kind of weird, I know, but you're a human, right? So at some point, the first person that acts kind of aggressive, all right, maybe, you know, tolerate that, settle down. But depending on how many people you might interact in a day, once you get to the 100th person doing it in an 8-hour shift, at what point are you going to be worn down? Yes, everybody has to be professional, but there's still some amount of reasonable limits. Look, even soldiers in combat zones, they study the psychology because there's reasonable limits.
Yeah,
right?
Officers are trained to behave professionally at all times, you know, but the human interaction kicks in, the human behavior kicks in at times, and you know, we try to avoid that. So if we can avoid it on both sides, maybe the SOE will be smoother. But one thing we should note is that during the last SOE, there was very little complaints by members of the public about the police service behavior and the interactions they had with members of the public.
And this SOE seems to be even more specifically targeted than the last one, going by the commissioner's description. The AG and the Prime Minister, they did mention general crime as well, but the genesis of this really is the concerns, the security concerns that we have. So the public shouldn't be too worried about being caught up in it, right?
Right. They shouldn't be too worried about getting caught up in the SOE. However, the commissioner was very general. The AG was very general in their comments. There is room for speculation because as far as we don't know exactly what is the specific information they had, we do see them using terms like gang involvement, syndicate. It does make you want to, it makes you believe that And we have information that gangs are operating throughout the Caribbean, up and down the Caribbean in Latin America. And we don't know to what extent their information indicates that this syndicate is regional.
Not just regional, because the last cocaine bust that involved TTPS officers was done in Portugal.
Right.
Whereas the one before, I believe, would have been the one in No Man's Land, or just by Pigeon Point there on the end of Pigeon Point.
Yeah.
And that was expected to be essentially passing through in order to go up the island.
Right,
so, you know, at least with the actual drugs, the whole transnational thoroughfare for drugs, it's not really for us, it's meant to go on. We've seen police interdiction that basically shows that to be true, at least to some extent, right? Or to a great extent. Yeah, some cocaine might slip into here and people might use it, but we ain't really the market, right? And that suggests a larger international effort.
Yeah, and again, with speculation, I can't say, well, I don't know if, based on the recent occurrences with CPAP and URP, it indicates that the gangs that may have been funded via these methods who are retaliating. Because the AG did indicate that he was that the building that he was standing in at that time when he was doing the press conference wasn't being blown up by a rocket launcher, I believe.
Right, yes, he said that.
So the thing is that it does leave room for speculation. We don't know how wide, far-reaching the information is. However, as the commissioner also indicated, if you go about your law-abiding business, you have nothing to worry about.
I mean, to some extent, some people might say, are you serious? Why rocket launcher? Nah, what rocket launcher? But I guess that just goes to show that he's not willing and the leadership isn't willing to just discount anything.
No, and then when you look at the 1990 coup, and we're coming up to the anniversary of it, when we look at that, you don't want to get caught with your pants down again.
Yeah.
If you understand. That happened.
And it wasn't like it was like, 16 regiments of heavy infantry that stormed the Red House. It was just a few.
113 members.
Yeah, with just some rifles, which theoretically, there's enough pistols and rifles and shotguns to arm that number of people.
So if you have incidents like that happening, what you'll have happening in the future is as soon as the information becomes reality or actionable, they will act on it. And I think the state of emergency is one of the measures they use.
And I believe it was said it was intelligence reports over time.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, with regards to the public, to whatever extent you could answer this, how much do you think a lot of the interaction with the police is because, Trinbagonians see what's going on abroad and they're like, well, police is just people you're not supposed to trust. And I get it, right?
Yeah.
There's bad public interactions here as well.
Yeah,
there's allegations of corruption here as well.
Yeah.
But to what extent are we also kind of importing this is the attitude you have to have with police? Because when people think about having their rights infringed, I don't know if that's really a Trinbagonian thing to go that far, if you know what I mean, right?
We have adopted Western culture to some extent where it's our right to complain, it's our right, and we stand up for our rights. It'll be videotaped, nothing wrong with that. Nothing's wrong with that.
I mean, to some extent in the past, did people have that entitlement of, we could complain about the police in the face?
No, that came about recently with gang culture, with I want to use the term ghetto, but in terms of behavior, the normalization of that bad behavior, that gangster type behavior. What we had was people, you had mature police officers dealing with a mature public long ago. And there was a mutual respect. As opposed to now where you have a lot of young officers on the field who, although trained, may not utilize the training that they have and interact in a negative or informal way with members of the public. And you have that lack of respect and whatnot. But the majority of interactions with police officers are mostly positive. It's just that you don't hear about it.
Yes.
We have a lot of positive feedback coming in. We should, as the media ambassadors representing the TTPS, we should indicate those positive interactions, and people need to really be honest. And they don't normally go to social media and speak about the positive interactions they have with police officers, because we do have their daily interactions I hear it from
every
people
now
on
and
the
then you
ground.
get like a letter to the editor.
You get once
But
in a while.
very,
Yeah,
very,
few
yeah.
and far in between. But there are a lot of, the majority of interactions with police officers are very positive. Of course, you have the interactions that are negative, and the officers would have used the force and the means necessary to deal with that situation, subdue the situation. Of course, you being on the other end of that subduing would never think it's a positive interaction, especially if you haven't done anything wrong. But you may not, and that's where the training comes in, where people have to understand, police officers have to understand how to explain to members of the public what they're doing, and they don't do it enough. I remember it had a time, there was a kidnapping, and a white 80 wagon was used. This was about 15 years ago, and we were outside on patrol around midnight, and we happened to caught a glimpse of a white 80 wagon coming from the direction of where the kidnapping occurred.
Right.
And of course, we had, it's task force. We seen and family stopped. Unfortunately, we traumatized them because we armed to the teeth as task force officers, and we jumped out and we approached the vehicle, and we had to block it, maneuver. We had to use tactics to maneuver to block the vehicle because there's one police vehicle is suspicious. It fits the description. And the family were traumatized, and I came out and I explained why we did what we did, and they were totally fine with it after.
Right.
And that's the thing. Police officers need to explain themselves to members of the public whatever they're doing, especially if the interaction becomes sour.
I mean, and this is the thing, some people might think, well, why aren't young officers fully equipped when they're trained straight out of the academy? Does not mean something's wrong with the academy. No,
definitely not.
I just like to point out, for all of eternity, young second lieutenants, which are newly minted officers in most armies that I've ever heard of, are basically looked at as literally the incompetent novices that don't know nothing and need to have their hands held by the senior enlisted, right? Like, these are officers, most of them have college degrees, they're highly educated, they went to officer training school or military academy and what have you. They are not fully equipped, most of them, to handle the responsibilities that they're supposed to have as a young second lieutenant, right? And so this is across the board. Training on things like this, dealing with people, leading people and stuff like that, it takes a lot more than just what you might learn in however long the training course is, a year, however long.
6 months.
6 months, right? Which again, don't think that that's too short, right? The actual things to teach you in a classroom setting might not actually be that much. This is not like CAPE where, we're going to take something that could be taught in 6 months and we're going to give you 5 years. Yeah. That's not what this is about. But a lot of it is also maturity like how to deal with. Because I think this is one of the things that, this might be a weird analogy, but, well, I guess there's two ways. Anyone that's ever been in an actual real world fight, or anyone this is a weird analogy again, but plays video games online where you're dealing with a high-end confrontation, right?
Mentally,
when you are a novice, it's like, oh my gosh, everything is happening so fast and I don't know what's going on. And most people, if you're not a gamer, if you've ever been in a fight, you would know, you kind of have the same mental perception, right? And with police, like, it's more now than just the actual confrontation. It's the stressful things, whatever stress you have at work. With police, it's just a little bit more, because we're not talking about who missed the deadline to send out the memo to talk about the office party. We ain't talking about that. We're talking about, we stopping these people, maybe having to give them a ticket, and then what if they might go and complain to PCA if we are not sure what we're doing right, and even if everything is done well, even if the system is working 100% perfectly, it's a stressful thing for an officer to have to deal with these things, because there could be very well consequences if they make a mistake, right? So that's that. Now, again, like I said, the public interaction, it's just one of those things where it shouldn't need an SOE for people to help the police.
Right.
But here's the interesting part. Because you will have expanded powers, for the public now, I don't have to give you everything on a silver platter anymore.
No.
Now you have expanded powers, right? So potentially, I just need to give you even a bare hint of where to look, of what to do. I don't want to be involved. That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I don't need to spell it out and then be a witness or whatever.
No,
At least, right?
No.
You all have expanded powers. You all don't need a whole set of evidence to get a warrant, right? For better or worse. And people might think that's a bad thing, but the last SOE kind of proved, look, at the very least, we know lines are not going to be crossed in scenarios like this. You all had a SOE just this year that kind of proved that, right? As you said, the public didn't have an issue.
No.
So it should be easier now for the public to assist you.
Of course. And the lines are open, the 555, 999, 800 tips. Just to remind members of the public, 999 is not anonymous. So if you don't want to have your number flash across our screens, call the 555, call 800 tips.
And 999 is not anonymous, I assume, in part because if there's
an emergency, if there's an emergency, we need to call you back.
And not just that, but like to help trace where's this.
Exactly.
Right? Because I might call 999 and then all of a sudden I'm incapacitated. He's beating me right now. It's a home invasion. I'm being beat with lead pipes. You could at least try and figure out where I am.
Exactly, and be reminded, members of the public are reminded that all the calls to 999, not to the police station, not to 555, not to 800 tips, are recorded. So when you call 999, the entire conversation is recorded, even the noise in the background. So it's,
which is important.
Which is important. So when you make a call, you're going through a situation, call 999, especially an emergency situation. Call 999 so the officers, the investigators can have access to those recordings if need be.
But the flip side to that is, and we've spoken about this before with the police, right? Probably more than once.
Yeah.
The whole thing about, well, you might knowingly, but you haven't said anything, or there might be a firearm in your house.
Yeah.
You might be harboring some drugs. And now, this is one of those things where, if there was ever a time where you as Joe Public, that you just really want to keep your head down and not be involved.
Yeah.
But that gun in your house, whether you actively decided to it being there or not, involves you, and it would probably be better for you to do something about it, as in report it. Maybe anonymously report it on yourself. Well, maybe not anonymously report it on yourself because you might end up being arrested, but report it so that...
because it's a strict liability offense and you remain anonymous. If the officers come and execute a warrant or under the SOE, they engage the home and they find the firearm, all persons in the home would be arrested.
Right. And to prevent that, because you all are, this is one of the things, right? I think in both SOEs, one of the things that you're probably looking for is guns. They have some statistics.
Yeah, we have
gotten a few guns already. It's basically just been a weekend.
Yeah.
To some extent, it's not a lot of weapons.
Up to Saturday.
Yeah, up to Saturday. So we're talking like 24 hours or 24 to 36 hours. Yeah. So only about 8 weapons, only 1 rifle, but still, this is just one of those things where now is not the time when the authorities are saying there might be a plot for you to be harboring something like a rifle.
Harboring persons or ammunition or firearms or drugs. Yeah, you don't want to be caught in that right now.
Do we have a caller? I think Master Control was telling me. We have Digger Martin on the line, so we'll take the call. Do we have a call after Digger Martin? Okay, we have the one call. We'll take the call. Good morning, caller. You on here?
Good morning. Sean and ASP Arun.
Good day, good day.
I have about the GPS. I recommend the GPS, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, let me offer my condolences to the policeman whose wife has died and hope a speedy recovery for him and his son. However, I am going after the 4th estate with respect to the reporting of that accident. They identified the policeman and his family's name. The other person involved in the accident, the son-in-law of the owner of Shabona's Plaza, which is basically, I believe, is Price Plaza. They didn't tell us his name. Why are they being that way? Only giving us half of the information. The 2 newspapers give the same thing. The critical thing is this: the police acted well. They arrested the person, they released him because they have medical attention, and apparently he was at the airport the next day trying to leave. And I think he was basically held back for further investigation. So that tells me something is happening that I like in police service. The other thing is that the lawyer and the perpetrator of the girl who was killed in Grande, police acting again. And now I come to give kudos to COP, his press on the utterances of the Police Service Commissioner, what the Prime Minister has said in the recent past. With respect to the Police Commissioner's statement, he said as syndicates of gang. What does he mean by that, and what I infer with that? That means gangs. If we listen to the Prime Minister on several occasions in the recent past, she highlighted two. Tren de Agua has infiltrated some of the gangs in Trinidad, and there are paramilitary personnel from Venezuela who are here. That is evidence they have of that. What that tells you, the syndicate of the gangs could be much more than me as a potong will realize. But connecting the dots, is certain organization in Trinidad is in cahoot with Maduro to unstabilize instability of our current government. We have to be careful with that, because Tren de Agua and paramilitary, if they blend into our syndicate, then we could expect some instability somewhere. The only person who have not inserted themselves into all of this yet are some of the religious organizations. I could remember back in the 1990s, Sopo and Popo and all of those things, a religious leader was front and center with all of those things. Juxtapose that to the utterances of some of the opposition members. A former Attorney General, a former Minister of Local Development said in the next 6 months we could expect all sorts of things, war, etc. You have another chairman of the PNN saying Bangladeshi and people from Delhi thing. That to me, I am not a lawyer, I'm another leader, but is that bordering seditious utterances? So I'm saying there is something happening there, and we have to look at it seriously. I'll go and have a nice morning.
Thanks, Kola. I will say this, I don't want to even allow that talk on sedition, because I believe when it happened to, oh gosh, I can't remember the head of the Mahabasaba at the time, I didn't agree with it then. I think that was going too far, and I'll say it again now. And the reason why is it's not to protect any individual. That kind of precedent then will be far-reaching and will technically at some point apply to everybody. And then at some point you'll say, even if you're good with it being used against the people you don't like, it'll come back to bite you for the side you support as well. And that's just a step too far. I wouldn't go that far, because that'll also impact whatever freedom of expression we have. We don't actually have free speech here in TNT by law. We have St. James on the line. Good morning, caller, you on here?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, morning.
Morning, and listeners. Morning. Nice program. I just called to make a brief comment, because what happened, this is something that said over and over, but yet I hope the police commissioner is listening, because now we used to talk about movies, what going on in movies, but now we have actual police footage from cameras, all those videos they show on cable TV as to actual arrests of people and so on. There's actual body cam footage from the police service, and they're showing you cameras inside the police station, how they operate in there. Now, what I'm saying here, I go get brush aside easy again, but I've been saying this for over 30 years now, right? We see these people in the white uniform doing the DNA stuff all the time in these murders in Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah. You mean we do have a proper fingerprint database up to now? And we do have in 2025, we do have a proper DNA database up to now? A proper fingerprint where all the police stations are connected to a main computer, and you pick up fingerprints in a crime, simply put it in, it runs through the main computer, and you come up with the culprit. Now, when you keep doing this constantly and building a base, and you have 5 computers top ranking in case one break down, and you have external memory, you have to say all of this. Because it sounds like the police service have one computer, and when it breaks down, you lost all your facts. backward. The dunsiest computer person know they have an external memory, you buy one by PriceSmart and connect it to your computer, okay? So your main files, you could never lose that. You always have access to it. Why are we, and to the UNC, and to the PNM, whenever if all they ever come back in power, when we have it, these kind of databases and these kind of things, so the police service work could be a lot easier and you could catch criminals on a quicker basis. And we have such bright, intelligent people throughout all the sectors in Trinidad and Tobago. They have so much qualifications. Go home by them and see the plaques on the walls. But we don't have a simple fingerprint and DNA database in the police service. And all connected. You also need to do like America, get the insurance car companies, car insurance, connect it to the database. Don't let me give you a fake copy of an insurance and you just read and take that and tell me go ahead. You need to put the information in the computer in your car and find out if that insurance is valid.
Yeah.
So we're not in 2025. We are in 1970. Okay? And all you bright guys out there, government, private, and public sector, you all do something positive that you will look at. You will look on. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you, caller. Go ahead.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay. Thank you, caller.
Well, on the first issue with the fingerprint, we do have the computerized system, but based on best practices throughout the world, not everybody has access to that. So the officers at the crime scene investigators department, the CSIs, the fingerprint bureau has particular access. They are class 1 investigators.
Right.
So based on they being class 1 investigators, other investigators don't have access.
Right.
Other officers don't have access. So we have classes in the TTPS that gives you access to certain databases. So
that's to prevent abuse?
To prevent abuse, to prevent interfering with the information.
Right.
It's a check and balance system. So these officers who have access to the database, especially the fingerprint database, are sworn to certain oaths and whatnot. The fingerprint system itself is computerized in that it would pick up even partial prints and match it to somebody.
Right.
And as a third or even another verification measure, the officers would then pull the file of those persons from the hard copy and then match it against the specimen found on a crime scene. So it's not just, we don't just use the computer system to verify that this is John Doe's fingerprint. We also use the hard copy because the officers are well trained in how to pick it up. Because of the check and balance system, and we don't want to rely solely on the computerized system.
It can make a mistake.
It can we don't know.
Yeah.
So
you just want to double check.
We pull the hard copy, and the hard copy tells us it really does belong to that person.
Because, folks, Excel spreadsheets notwithstanding, glitches can happen.
Yeah.
Right?
But on the second issue, he spoke about...
well, he also mentioned DNA and vehicle insurance.
I know the DNA database, I know the Forensic Science Center is in charge of that.
Right.
I'm not too sure how up the mark it is, but when we go to a crime scene and we collect samples, we hand it over to forensics, and they would determine who is the owner of the DNA.
Isn't that the issue in these things is to some extent that they're not that old, so yeah, you're going to add entries to it, but it's going to take time
to populate.
Yeah, an expansive database that you could then backtrack, right? For someone to go in a DNA database or a fingerprint database, they actually have to have done something.
Yeah, so and then police officers themselves and military officers, like the army, they would have had to have given their DNA.
Right, okay.
So like I would have given my DNA to...
right, but the point is...
the doctor.
Unless we get some big changes in the law, y'all can't demand every man, woman, and child, regardless, y'all are going to be in a database.
Unless you're involved in a crime, we won't be able to take your DNA.
Right.
So if you're involved, you're just suspect in a crime. So for instance, recently we had I think a guy was charged for rape and he refused to give his DNA. We can't use force to take the DNA from him.
I mean,
Legally.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what I mean say, your judge, warrant, you know, to demand.
No.
Oh, no. Depending on the situation, you could just.
The act covers that we
Oh,
take.
okay.
And we take it from wherever we need to take it. And meaning like
a hair or something.
Hair follicles.
Right. Yeah.
So if there's no hair follicles on your hair, it might have on your chin.
Right.
Just saying. Or wherever.
Or your ear or your nose.
Or some part of your body that has hair follicles.
Yeah.
We'll be taking it from there.
But to some extent, people shed DNA. You all don't need to scrape off skin to get it.
No,
right? There'll be a lot of
the basic one we
ways
take is from your
cheek swabs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, because the caller did mention, so in my mind, yes, caller, this makes sense. Have these databases connected, right?
The most important point he did make, one of the most important points he did is that insurance database.
Right, the vehicle,
because
yes.
we have come across people scanning their previous or current insurance certificate and digitally changing the dates.
Yeah.
Right, and it does print with the correct stamp.
Right.
And the reason your insurance company should take some heed in what he's saying is because if the police could verify if it's a false insurance, the insurance company is losing money. It's really they're losing money because
But not just that, the whole point is you're supposed to be covered in case something happens.
Right, and then the police would be able to tell if you're covered or not. And it have people trying to avoid paying insurance policies and whatnot. And so the insurance company, the main thing is that they're losing money. So if they're interconnected, if we have the RTA system, because we have a system to look at RTAs, road traffic accidents, and it's interconnected with the insurance companies, they could tell better if a vehicle was involved in an accident.
But is it that the police has legal access to this right now?
The RTA?
Potentially to insurance information or no?
No.
All right, and I think part of that could be legislation, but I'll hit a pause there. We have San Fernando waiting on the line. We'll take the call. Good morning, caller, you on the air?
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Yeah.
Good day.
You hear me, Sean?
Yeah, we're hearing you. Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but we're hearing you.
Okay. You know, I have learned to, in Trinidad and Tobago, take everything with a tablespoon of salt. When I look at, and I listen to the week before last week, when I listened to Mr. Alexander, the Homeland Security Minister, when I listened to his comments when he was in Jamaica, and then when he came back to Trinidad, I said to one of my friends, you know they're going to have a state of emergency, right? And so said, so done. I am waiting to see that, for instance, the last state of emergency, what was done was a lot of detention orders, and people were released after the detention orders. I am waiting to see something different this time, because I am hoping that all that was said by the Attorney General and especially by the Police Commissioner, I hope this is not a case of information that does not isn't backed up by evidence, because this is getting ridiculous if it is that this is just another run-of-the-mill state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. I am hoping that there is evidence, and I am waiting to see people being brought up on charges, because based on what was said, it's a lot of I waiting for to hear about treason, because to destabilize Trinidad and Tobago in the way that was suggested, people have to be held accountable, at least based on the information, and I'm going by what the commissioner said, information that they had. So I am waiting to see, because I am fed up of the state taking the population for a ride. I'm not blaming the rank and file of the police service. rank and file the police service only marching in lockstep with what they've been, what the seniors tell them to do. So I am not blaming you officers, ASPR. I am looking at the hierarchy here because I see in roadblocks, here they get a couple guns, they get some marijuana, that kind of thing. That is not what I want to hear. Based on what they said, based on what the commissioner said, the information that he had, that he had to go to the Prime Minister and the National Security Council to get them to have a state of emergency. It is that serious based on what he said.
Yeah.
So if it is that serious, I am expecting as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago to see big things in terms of the shake-up in at that level of crime, because he said a crime syndicate. A syndicate. This is supposed to be something very serious that we're supposed to take. But my years in Trinidad and Tobago and dealing with politicians in this country have had me having to be plenty sort.
Yeah.
Now, let me see that is all I have to say for now. Have a good day, gentlemen.
I think Mr. Guevara, the commissioner, is he's really new to the post, but nonetheless, I think his credibility is at this time unwavering. I mean, if you look at it, he's new to the post. He has been the one to come out and say he received he has seen information. Based on information, he went to the Security Council. He called an urgent and immediate meeting with them. And to say that, it might be political or, a gimmick.
Here's the thing why there's one thing that this SOE has that the other SOE earlier this year did not have. To kind of push back a little bit against that, it is a political thing that the government is trying to do. And that is the president.
It didn't seem political at all.
Right, the president is not a UNC appointee. Right? So to some extent, for her to sign off on it with no reservations or disclaimers, right? That says the politicians view a threat. Now, here's the key, because we might want to think, oh, the politicians are doing something kind of underhanded politically. No, what it could be is you can't have a situation where they may not have exercised best judgment, not because of some political agenda, but just because this is kind of how the political class interprets these things. This is how the business is done, and maybe the judgment of the politicians might not be robust enough because of experience in handling matters like these properly or not, right? Because look, the SOE in 2011, it has its critics and criticisms, right? But to some extent, the last one went off relatively smoothly. Hopefully we don't see 1,000,001 lawsuits. This one, you have a PNM president more or less signing off on a UNC's commissioner of police saying, let's have a state of emergency.
And he doesn't have the commissioner saying, this is the information he had. You also hear the AG saying.
Yeah, who is a former PNM AG. So again, so this is a bit more bipartisan than unilateral, right?
It seemed that the information is credible, and it seemed that it was so urgent that especially based on what the AG has said.
So here's the thing. Something like this, right? Now, granted, some things I think there's a reasonable expectation we should have evidence for. But to some extent, if you head off a plot, right, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get enough evidence to fully prosecute this plot.
So those are cautionary measure to take. Yeah.
Usually, when you successfully collect evidence, part of it entails the aftermath of the successful incident where you could collect evidence from that. But you don't have that now if you kind of head it off.
I suspect that they are building a case, or they have evidence to some extent.
Well, especially the prisoners that were transferred, you would suspect that they would have something on them. But they acted on intelligence, that's technically not evidence. So I won't be surprised, unfortunately, and I think it's partially based off of the weaknesses of our laws, for criminal laws, that some aspects of this we might not get evidence for. But with regards to certain other aspects, I would be a little disappointed if we can't even investigate that, and that has to do with regards to the prisoners, and that's part of their accountability too, right? Prison service notwithstanding, I understand they feel that they're under the crosshairs. I'll speak more about that tomorrow, but when the police commissioner says, well, this is a critical weakness.
One of the things that you have to bear in mind too is that in collecting evidence, the evidence may not be direct. For instance, if prisoners are being monitored based on communication, so if prisoners are being their communication is being monitored, whether written or verbal or whatnot, they speak in code at times.
Yes.
So there's actually a department that analyzes conversations and communication because of the gang culture. So gangs speak in code.
And I'm not going to say this of any attorney, but at the end of the day, that is a medium of communication, right? Whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
They might be completely unwitting, right? But the point is, it does exist. So to what extent is the prisoner's rights being trampled on? That's a very tricky discussion, right? That is not, I don't think, an absolute position on one side or the other is correct. And long and short, I agree with the judge in this case who basically said, hey, the needs of the many, yeah, your individual rights right now for a few days, it ain't that important, right? It's not like the man is going to be in a military prison for the rest of his life being,
tortured or
exactly.
Yeah.
We do have St. James back on the line. Good morning, caller. You on there?
Yeah, morning. I calling back. I was a little hyper just now, but I calling concerning the prison. I happy about the state of emergency, and I'm happy that the people who in the night had the staff to pay their bills and things, they could make $1 because Trinidad public right now, how they are accustomed frequenting in the night life, it's nothing like what it was before.
Yeah.
It's bad, and there are people under pressure because people just go out there and, recreate themselves a little bit. So the bandits have us, innocent people, under lockdown. But what I want to say, the prison must have a confined area for high-risk prisoners. And when you have that, high-risk prisoners is not allowed any type of visitation or anything. They have a phone in the prison where they would allow them calls at a particular time. I'm talking internationally now, where they are monitored while they speak to the family on the phone. So you ain't totally taking the rights from them, right? People have to understand too, in the prison is another world. It's like an embassy.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna go and rough up and do a prison officer what you want, and he go just pat you on the back and tell you, boy, behave yourself. And every day you're cussing him and you're irritating. And where you feel one day when he come think, I mean, there's a different world. What the prisoner saw is that he's supposed to rape, right? He has no rights where that is concerned, right? So I'm saying, let the people talk to the family on the phone being monitored. You must have no visitors, period. Talk to them on the phone, and it is being a simple thing like that, right? So, okay, there is a start with this present situation, and they move the prisoners, fine, but we need to get that in order. The prisoners are handling stories, and the public must not get involved in that. Right, because if four prisoners attack me as a prisoner officer in the prison, and I have something and totally dead, I'm not concerned about that. They look for that. You understand me? So don't let the rights of the innocent and the rights behind a prison is two different things. Now these people with the human rights thing trying to even get in the prison and all, and look at it affecting the whole, affecting half of the world. Right? Prisoners have really no rights, and people who don't want to admit this. Right? So I just want to say that, and I just want to simply say the prisons could have handled the situation better, having the right, those things in place for high-risk prisoners. They're not allowed visitors. It's simple as that. You put yourself there. Don't blame me for that, and because I talking and being vexed with me. Who tell you to go in prison? Who tell you to do the things you do? Is there not laws governing the land? Right, so we need the laws to be more upgraded. Sean, I hope you'll understand what I'm saying. I'm just passionate. And thank God the public, a lot of people putting cameras in the house so it will assist the police, they'll get some footage and things, but the government need to have a camera system throughout the entire country, just as England, America, all the other countries. We always want to talk about America. Hey, let's get the job done. Have a good day.
Thank you, Cole.
Yeah.
I'll just say this. Even prisoners should have certain rights, but I very much agree with you in the sense of, hey, You are high security, high risk prisoner, you get caught with a phone. At some point, it's like, you're proving to me that you're still breaking the law.
Yeah.
More harsher things could then come down, and it's like, why are you allowed certain privileges if you're already having contraband? We're not talking, oh, you have a stick of gum you're not supposed to have. You have cigarettes you're not supposed to have. You have a phone. You are, and it is suspected, and this is not just a Trinidad thing. This is known around the world. You know, shot callers in prisons is a thing, right?
Yeah.
So I have no issue with, hey, okay, well, we put you in solitary.
But whether or not they use phones, they communicate. And
yeah, they have other ways too.
They have other ways to communicate.
So,
and they do speak in codes, and they do send out their messages.
Which is why I have no problem, again, with these prisoners being in the barracks, and I have no problem if some sort of long-term alternative arrangement. Or you have a phone in maximum security prison, okay, well, you go from here to there.
Yeah, one of the
wherever
problems,
there is.
One of the problems with the prison service you could identify easily is that the prison officers themselves are vulnerable.
Yes.
Because their identities are known to the prison.
And the thing about that, I'm sure we've all seen Latin American prisons where the prison officers wear balaclavas.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure they don't have name tags.
No.
And what have you, they might even
and
go
everything
faster.
is scrutinized. There are a lot of monitors, there are a lot of cameras and whatnot.
So like at some point, a brown skin person and a balaclava. I mean, this is TNT. How do you even differentiate what race the person is, much less
so they need they actually are vulnerable and they do need protection. Hopefully we could find some...
Part of the problem is, it's almost like with the public, where they have to do their part for their own protection.
Right.
And if they break ranks, right, they make, what they don't seem to understand is, your peers who are corrupt are making you vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right? But with what the caller said, to some extent, I agree with that. With regards to the cameras, I think that goes into a wider thing, because with the insurance stuff, because in my mind, it's not just that you have access to that. It should be, you're not going to have a fingerprint access or DNA access in a vehicle, but license, registration, insurance, you know, these things should be brought up in a vehicle. Yeah. So when you make a traffic stop, you could get all these things, you know, one time.
Yeah.
So this is to help the public. Those who there's nothing really to see here move along, that can happen faster, right? But I guess like vehicle insurance, that would take a change in the law.
Yeah, it would.
To allow that, to allow your access to that.
Yeah, exactly. And it would take some infrastructure. Yeah, we would need
more than we have. Now, I think the PNM, their financial policies kind of made these things difficult, because how they budgeted thing was to basically try to keep up with everything, but of course they couldn't keep up with everything really, so what you're going to cut, right? So then to have money for new things was not that easy. Minister Alexander did imply, with consultation with a foreign firm, he's looking more into technology, but no concrete promises have been.
Intelligence and whatnot. One of the things we saw benefit in was the Eagle Eye operation in the Tunapuna area. That was very fruitful. We were able to solve some crimes coming out of that community and whatnot.
One would hope he's the MP for the area, so he could, I believe, right? So he could use that. And I think too, this is the thing, and this goes back to what even the former mayor of Port of Spain was going with public-private partnerships, because it's funded in part by Tunapuna's business chamber, right?
Yeah, and the police officers provide the manpower to monitor the cameras. And we were able to, I remember being there for the Carnival 2024, sorry. And we were able to monitor and see offenses before they took place.
Right.
In the sense that we were able to see people loitering in their vehicles. And we saw, and we were able to dispatch patrols. So it does have some fruit in it. It does seem to be beneficial. And it should, to me, in my opinion, it should be expanded throughout the country.
This is the thing. I think the automatic response is, well, why do we have to pay for a thing? Shouldn't the state pay for the thing? And I think people need to understand, listen, we long past the point of shoulda, woulda, coulda. Can the state afford to pay for everybody right now? Do you want to wait?
But this is your camera system, huh?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, so this is your camera system and the police would monitor.
But what I'm saying is, right, let's just say we all demand that the state pay for every other camera system, right? Tunapuna decided they're going to do it on their own, and here's the key benefit of that. They have it already. Right? Are we good? At some point, they're not going to just wait until... Do we want them to wait until they have the money to pay for everybody's camera system all at once? How long will that take? Or they do it in one area at a time, and then the people at the bottom of the list, how long you have to wait for yours, right? So this is the benefit. And what's fair for one is fair for all. I said it under the PNM, money is tight. Under the UNC, money will be tight. They ain't gonna just magically find more money than before, right?
I had some of the stats I wanted to read out. Like,
yeah, sure, go ahead.
So we had like over those 2 days, I would call it 2 days.
I wouldn't even call it 2 days, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're talking Friday into Saturday.
Yeah.
That might be a day, really.
Yeah, we had 185 operations. 70 priority offenders were targeted. There were 1,185 searches conducted. 94 traffic operations, 81 persons were arrested, 715 traffic offenses were detected. Firearms recovered, 4 pistols, 2 revolvers, 1 shotgun, 1 rifle. That was good with the rifle. Ammunition, we had assortment of ammunition, 9mm, 12 gauge, 382, 5.56, and 38. Over a kilo of marijuana and over 6 grams of cocaine, which wasn't much. Wasn't much at all.
I'll say this, the 715 traffic offenses, aren't you happy they got rid of the merit points now? All 715 of you, potentially? Which I don't have an issue with. I don't have an issue with it at all, right? Unless, of course, it was speeding and reckless driving. More rifles would be nice. More cocaine would be nice. I don't really care about marijuana, in part because the laws governing that seemingly are so bad. Y'all have one arm tied behind your back. That's my words. That's not the words of the media ambassador. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, but most likely those were trafficking offenses.
Right,
yeah.
right. The last thing I'll say is just this, because people are questioning what does the commissioner mean and the AG mean, or whoever said the term syndicate of gangs. And I think this is one of those weird things where people don't fully appreciate. When like the FBI talks about whatever, the Gambino crime family, and describes the organization, to some extent they're labeling it.
Right.
Right? The criminal organization itself might have some structure, but some parts of it, it's just what it is. They're not real. It's not like they have like a book and this is the manual and the gang is laid out like this and you have to have so many men under so many lieutenants and stuff like that.
What we found was that they have been able to infiltrate institutions, organizations, governmental organizations and whatnot. They even tried to infiltrate the TTPS. And you saw that we actually saw where the commissioner, one of the previous commissioners, had to stand down some of them even getting adopted into the police service until they were properly cleared. They were properly cleared. Because we saw that they were connected to gangs and whatnot.
But the point I want to make is not everything is going to be like the 5 families in The Godfather.
No.
Right? It could be, we have a gang here, a gang there, a gang there.
Yeah.
There might be Trendy Aragua. They have informal connections. Let's do a thing.
But the structured gang comes out of Colombia.
Right.
So you have that mafia type gang
Yeah.
in Colombia. And then it extends to Mexico and Venezuela. And they have the troops in Venezuela and Mexico carrying out their bidding and whatnot. So the structured mafia is Colombian.
But when the commissioner or the AG says syndicate of gangs, I mean, to some extent, you would have to compile evidence to fully define what that is.
Yeah.
So it's not so easy to just define everything now.
And as I said, that the gangs have infiltrated different countries throughout the Caribbean.
Right.
So even the 6 and 7 and 9 and whatnot.
Right, yes.
They are part and parcel of other countries, Barbados, coming down.
And it's also important to note some of these gangs are so new. It's not like, well, this is how they are for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they replace somebody else, right?
Yeah.
So you all have to kind of, to some degree, start from scratch. Who are they? What are they about? How do they organize? Because Rasta City and unruly ISIS might have been different.
Yeah, that's why we have gang intelligence units in each division. Yeah.
All right, so long and short is, don't hold the authorities to what is the specifics on when you mean like that. They're using a general descriptive term because right now it's preliminary. This is just one of those things, right? It's not a formal military. It's a criminal activity that's coming together to do something to some extent unprecedented. So you need evidence to figure it out. I think one undercover FBI agent or federal law enforcement agent in the States, he was like, or maybe police, he was like, we have to have 3 out of 15 indicators that positively identify gang involvement, right? So like, that's the thing. All of these things, if you want to formally define it, then you have to, it's a lot more work into it than just say a thing, right? Pull a number, pull a term out of the ether. But I think the implication is syndicate, meaning it's probably multiple criminal networks.
Yeah.
And as you said, international criminal networks are potentially involved.
Yeah.
So
regional,
there we go. And there could be more speculation on that, but we won't do that. And we definitely won't do that today. Hopefully we'll get more information as time goes on. But as ASP Arun said, please cooperate with the police during this time. Don't add to the confusion. Look, they don't have a curfew yet, right? They don't have a curfew yet. I know one made a victim. I forgot to mention they were calling for a curfew. I'm not too sure if that's necessarily a fair statement to make, that the criminals would not have done what they did if there was a curfew in that murder situation, right? We don't have a curfew yet. But if the public is uncooperative, depending on how it goes, it could lead to a curfew. I'm just saying. Not that I'm expecting it to happen, but still. Thanks to all the callers. Thanks to ASP Arun for joining me once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Folks, we're under state of emergency, so it goes without saying, stay safe. We don't know what the criminals are up to, so be vigilant. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other, and that includes our fellow Trinbagonians who wear the uniform and carry the badge. It's always nice to be nice, no matter who you meet day to day. Have a good day, good start for the week, so we can see each other tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.